Yay for my back. It's going to appreciate the Squishmallow. We can go ahead and hit that theme song chance.
That theme song chance coming up. And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mean Tweets. I am Chance the Gator, and that over there is Taylor.
I am Taylor.
And we are here to talk to you about all the good news, the bad news, and the ugly news that happened in the last week.
As told by social media.
As told by social media. There's a really kind of a crazy lot that's happened. We could really probably rant on and on. But before we get started, Taylor, you want to talk a little bit about, you had a promotion this last weekend. Give us
I did. Update. I appeared on a podcast. It was a video podcast through Rumble. So, kind of like a Rumble show, streaming show with Dara Muth. And we all call him Dara. He's a really awesome guy. And what he brings together is people that stream on Rumble. And when you're a smaller channel, you bring in people that are also smaller channels, and that's what we all are. We got to come together and bond and talk about the things that we do to try to grow an audience, and just nothing in general. So if you go back, we had about 4 people on, and we were just chatting about games and our lives and what we hope to get out of Rumble Studio in the future.
So this really wasn't so much like a theme, like we kind of deal a lot with politics and stuff here. This was really just like almost just like a gathering of Rumble.
Everybody was conservative, but it was really very very much about being a creator.
Was it specifically Rumble, or was it really more about being a creator?
Specifically Rumble streaming.
Cool. And do you want to do you have that link? Can you give a shout out to who hosted it?
I go over to Daramu's Corner in his channel, his Hangout. He's actually going to be doing his Hangout Den a lot less, I think like once every 4 months. So that is last Saturday's show, and everybody on there is great. Met the guy that streams sometimes with D-Pad, so that was really cool. And I enjoyed talking to everybody. It was just light entertainment evening.
Great. That's
a lot
great.
Of inside gamer talk.
So, don't really have a slide on this, but I think we need to talk about it, just because this is pretty big news. And we might as well get this out of the way, but I don't know if you heard, Taylor, but the Pope died.
What? No, I didn't hear that. What are you
so that'd
about?
Be Pope Francis. I'm always stunned how many popes we've had.
Yeah.
It's like over 250 now?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Well, you know what the buzz is going on around the conspiracy net? This is actually, there is, the Vatican contains a prophecy that was put into a book that this number would be the last pope. And the question is so they choose a new pope that makes their prophecy look bad. But I'm sure that they're going to anyway, and just pretend that prophecy doesn't exist.
Were they were suggesting the last one, the one that just died, was
the one that just died. He's the number of the last one that was seen in the vision.
And that prophecy dates back when?
From like the 1800s, I think.
Yeah. Well, everyone in the 1800s was stoned.
Yeah, probably.
One way or the other. Stoned physically or stoned mentally.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you, Taylor, but I really wasn't that happy with this last pope we had. I don't think it did a lot of good things for the Catholic Church. I just don't.
No, and I feel like getting out the Joker meme and saying, I'm tired of pretending it's not. And I get really annoyed and tired of pretending like, well, I guess I can't say anything. And, he did a lot of good I can't remember much of anything that I would call good.
He lived frugally.
Yeah, I've seen entire compilations today of him slapping people's hands away when they held on too long. And that's like
weird.
That's the basic job of the Pope, is to, bless people. So if you can't even do that with a friendly face.
Sounds like somebody had a rather autistic Pope. Didn't like being touched.
Just not the nicest guy.
Well, I think they always framed him as a nice guy, which is one of the reasons they let him be Pope. He was always a very frugal one, but...
Yeah, interesting ideas people have sometimes about what nice means.
I think that the biggest factor for me, there's a lot of factors, but the one that stands out the most was his outrage on the immigration issue, not just in this country, but just the way it pertained in the world at large.
Yeah.
How much migration has been taking place globally everywhere.
Yes.
And he seems clearly like a migration hawk.
Well, he just said whatever the globalists wanted him to say. This happened 100% of the time. And
that's even worse, Taylor. You're saying that he wasn't even his own man.
I don't think so.
Wow.
I think it's all a question of whom do you serve. And I just personally don't think he was serving the same God I was serving.
Well, as the Catholic Pope, he clearly is supposed to be serving God.
Well, clearly.
And if he's serving something like let's say the WEF Forum, that's a pretty big no-no.
Well, my Catholic friend called him the anti-pope, so I kind of feel too bad about expressing my own feelings on the subject.
So, and then also Klaus Schwab stepping down, kinda, maybe, sorta.
Well, so there's a couple things going on with it.
Yeah, this is getting kind of interesting, but not really. Like, I don't know if I really buy a lot into it, but it feels like they're trying to make a story into this.
Yeah, first thing is, no one's surprised when a man in his late 80s decides that it's time to step down. It's more surprising if he never steps down, and it was starting to look like he was just never going to do it. Reminder, the WEF chairmanship is a figurehead position. It does not have a ton of power. It is meant to be the person that goes out and cheerleads for the team. And the World Economic Forum itself is a cheerleading organization for the UN, for the economic side of the UN.
Yeah, but I wasn't even referring to that, Taylor. Did you see the thing that came out reported tonight?
Yeah, I did see the report that he is currently under investigation for financial fraud. I mean, that is, I guess, possible.
Well, it seems likely. I mean, with the bunch we're dealing with?
Exactly. With the bunch that we're dealing with, that sounds absolutely natural. So, sure, why not?
It'd be more like you'd be investigated if you weren't.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? You trying to do this honest?
Well, another thing is I saw a lot of people saying, like, globalism's losing, he's stepping down. No, he's just old. Like, globalism's still here, and the World Economic Forum hasn't gone anywhere, and they are, in fact, doubling down on all of their positions.
But I think that the interesting point to me related to that is, because it's possible that they wanted him to step down, they wanted to move on to the next, and so they're opening up this fraud investigation as a ruse for an excuse to get him down.
Yeah.
Because he just wasn't stepping down on his own.
Well, that, and also that he was kind of making noise like he thought his kids should take over, which, I don't know. Maybe
doesn't seem like they really worked that way.
Yeah, maybe this was a force out. I don't know.
Maybe. But anyway, that whole organization is a much bigger problem than just one man.
Yeah,
if anything, we're more likely to get a worse person in there. But in fact, we do already know who it is.
Yeah, we do already know who it is. So there's a lot of speculation about who's going to be next. One of the things I saw a lot of was Tony Blair. I don't think I've ever taken that very seriously.
No.
I don't think anyone takes Tony Blair seriously. I think they think he's kind of a joke.
Yeah, I don't think Tony Blair has the kahunas to take that kind of job. I mean, you gotta kind of have somebody that looks leeringly threatening.
I know that he goes around and advertises for them, I guess is what I would call it, but I don't think it's particularly officially. Another one I saw thrown around a lot was Yuval Harari. So, I said to you about this is that chairmanship is again, figurehead position, and it tends to go to somebody that's a lot older, that can just be that elderly advertising face of the organization. And I just really didn't think that was probably Harari at this time.
Okay.
And I also want to point out that everyone knows he does set the agenda of the forum itself whenever they have the actual get-together in Davos. So I don't really know why we're worried about the figurehead when the brains of the organization is the real problem.
Yeah. I mean, we all know it's Blofeld.
Well, actually, so I think we should do a bonus episode, and my suggestion was he did a lengthy interview that I think would be very cool to go over the questions that he was asked and see what you think he would have answered, and I summarize what he actually said.
Oh, sure. That could be illuminating.
It
I'm
is
sure
really
I would
interesting.
be nowhere close.
I watched the whole thing, and I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but it's full of just things that will make you really angry if you go over it point by point. And speaking of, I guess, is that you said something about Bloomberg, and like I found out Harari's not his real name. I was like a real shocker. It's just kind of like thrown out there in the middle of it.
It's not that shocking.
It
doesn't matter. You can go by Harari, and that can be.
Well, it does mean a lot when you're talking about Hebrews. So because the interviewer asked him the question, are you like a Hasidic Jew? And he says, no, I'm an Ashkenazi, which is a Russian and European, descent. And specifically, his name is Austrian, Bleiberg. And that, unlike people who think that Ashkenazi Jews aren't Jews at all, no, I absolutely believe that they are. But I think that they are most likely descended from the northern tribes, because it's so far north that they started, moving even further north, and those are considered lost tribes.
Yeah. Yeah, that would not be the tribe of Judah. That'd be more like the tribe of Benjamin.
Dan is what I think.
Dan?
That was the northernmost tribe.
Okay. That would make a great bonus episode. We should do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
We should definitely do that. All right, let's get started. We have a book here, a full book to get through.
We have a lot to go through, like usual.
Like usual. But this slide right here, I'm going to post. Honestly, we could just start every episode with this slide, probably for the next 4 years, probably forever. It's not chaos, it's planned.
Yeah.
I mean, this really could be the theme. Because, and what we mean by this is like everything that's being done, we don't mean Trump is chaos.
Yeah.
We're talking about like the Biden years. We're talking about what the world is doing. We're talking about like the World Economic Forum's vision and things like that.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that a lot changed with America, and that is one of the off-putting things about Harari's interview is he is talking about, like, the purpose of the interview is to talk about Trump. And that is really weird when you're talking about yet another European talking about Trump. But what's going on in the European Union and Canada is just a full forward momentum on the same WEF globalist plan that we were all staring down when we were considering putting Kamala Harris in charge. And what we were seeing the beginnings of when Biden was in office.
Right. And it's not just the U.S. I mean, you can see this stuff being implemented all over. Now, for anybody who's not watching this and just listening to it, I'll read through the items. So there's like 7 bullet points here. It's not chaos, it's planned. Point 1, import migrants, destroy culture. Point 2, jail citizens for criticism. Point 3, turn police against citizens. Point 4, invoke digital ID surveillance. That's a big one. Point 5, bankrupt nation to eliminate government. That sounds familiar. Point 6, eliminate private property. And then point 7, transfer citizens to a global government. One of the things that's kind of interesting to me is like, so I can look at this and think, okay, bankrupt nation to eliminate government. Well, that feels a little bit like what we were headed to with Biden, but that would mean he was skipping a bunch.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily in order, and I have
It
to
seems
say
like it would be.
we're not going to be immune from number 4. The whole world is headed for number 4, and I don't see any escape just because Trump is the one in office.
Yeah, number 4 being digital ID.
Digital ID and surveillance. We're still pushing forward with real ID. We're still talking about real ID because of the migrant explosion. Everybody that has been imported in this country is not gone yet, and I don't think all of them will be. So, we may be in the United States moving a little bit slower on some of these points now that Trump is in office, but full steam ahead for Europe and for Canada and the rest of the world.
Yeah. Also, that next to last one, eliminating private property. I mean, we did that whole thing on Blackstone in the last episode, which if you did not see that, I encourage you to go check out our last episode, because we did a deep dive into Blackstone. It was really fascinating.
Yeah, the very end of the episode it's worth watching those videos if you want to learn about how Blackstone is going to leverage its AI to be able to basically force everybody out of their homes.
So that just showcases 2 complete areas where they've been full-on manipulation to try to just control the whole.
Yeah, I don't think that you manage what he's talking about without a lot of planning even before January 6th.
Yeah.
This is all evidence leading to that the whole thing was pre-planned.
Well, remember, prior to January 6th, we had the Whitmer kidnapping.
Yeah.
We feel like there was pretty clear that there were FBI agents involved in that.
There was more FBI agents than there was non-FBI agents in the Whitmer kidnapping plot.
And it sounded too similarly like in January 6th that they were really pushing. Like, it's one thing if you're infiltrated to try to catch bad guys, but you're not supposed to be committing crimes yourself in that process.
No.
And the way it's being told is that they were really kind of pushing these guys who were kind of on the fence to just go ahead.
Well, they were. And that's why you ask for years, you see people asking the question, if you know, who is Ray Epps? And the reason they were asking that is because he's on video pushing and prodding and yelling for everyone to go storm the Capitol. And yet, he was one of the people that for years was not prosecuted and barely questioned. And while you saw people that never even went inside getting unbelievable sentences that just had nothing to do with anything. It never made sense, and the only way it does is if the FBI had a whole bunch of informants that they sent out there to stoke up a whole violence so that they could probably go after conservatives a lot harder than they got to.
You think? But I don't know. It even really shows really about going after conservatives more so than just trying to brand the whole party as evil.
Well, yeah, but they did go out. For years, they went after all kinds of people who were even just not even there on property when it happened.
But they used January 6th sort of as a rallying cry for years.
Well, they still are, I'll have to tell you.
And they still are, but during the Biden years, it was ridiculous in the sense that they would just be like, see, they're all bad. Like, practically, let's just round them up and euthanize them. They're all bad.
I know, I can't post anything on TikTok without having somebody come in and say, no, you're the violent domestic terrorist because of January 6th. Yeah, they'll use it forever. And no, it was never right. I mean, as soon as when I believed it initially for about 2 hours, and then the evidence started pouring in.
And even then, it's ironic in a really unpleasant way how they just completely overlook their own transgressions and just focus on, like, oh, January 6th. We're good little angels in a corner. We never do anything wrong as Democrats. Related to this, too, with this other tweet, I thought this was interesting, and I'll have to read it out. It's a little bit, the print is pretty darn small. But Tulsi Gabbard declassifies President Biden's a secret plan to eliminate the Second Amendment in the name of counterterrorism. That's bold.
It is, and I'm a little surprised that this didn't get more traction, other than the fact that everybody for a long time has known that that is the point of all of these shootings, is to eliminate the Second Amendment.
I think that they miscalculated on that, in the sense that going back to how long ago was Columbine now? That was in the 90s now,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it was during
Late
the 90s.
And so going back to Columbine and then short after in the 2000s, people were more outraged. But I think that one of the things that kind of screwed them in this is COVID. People got a chance to see firsthand what life is like when you have no way to defend yourself from tyranny in places like Australia, Italy, and just China, obviously.
Well, that's true, because we're a plugged-in society, and we got to see what it's like to be in these other countries. And even now, I can watch what's happening in England day by day with just, you're talking about, like, not COVID related, but Muslim migrants ruling the streets while citizens are arrested for complaining about it, and say that that's a situation that occurs when you cannot arm yourself.
So you're finding, I think, fewer people on their side of this argument than I remember.
Yeah, I don't see as much fighting about guns anymore.
They've really lost this one. They've moved on to
so.
the things like gender identity and stuff like that, but they really have kind of lost this issue. So I'm not sure this is only going to work. They could get it to work in the sense of things like the bump stocks and high-end magazine guns and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but to just outright
like
eliminate the Second Amendment, good frickin' luck.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
But I think they really had wanted it at one time.
Yes, they did.
The other day I watched. I've been trying to watch Gene Hackman movies, so I watched for the first time Runaway Jury, and I forgot what that was about. I'd never seen it. Now I remember why I never saw it, because it's about gun control. The whole thing is heavily steeped in gun control.
Yeah.
And that movie was made right in that time period where it was that high hysteria of guns are all the problem, not people who shoot them, and they do a good job of really making it emotional and all that, but people can see through that. There's a real logic there when you look at those portrayals to understand that a gun's an object, especially now when you look at things like in England, and they're having attacks in England, and they're not by gun, they're got by knives.
Yeah, but as soon as it's by knives, then the government comes out and Keir Starmer announces, "Oh, we're not going to allow less. We're going to allow less knives. We're going to not allow ninja swords anymore."
That's the point where the human population, regardless of where it starts going, like, yeah, this is full of crap.
Well, in China, they make you register to purchase a knife for your kitchen, and they attach it to the kitchen with a chain.
China's basically an outlier in every way.
Yeah,
and just everything. China is a bizarre entity on planet Earth.
You should have heard Harari pretend he doesn't know about what happens in China.
Add a laugh track to that.
I know, he knows about he's a claptrap mind for every kind of historical fact across the globe, but he is not an expert in the Chinese social credit system. In fact, it's a good thing.
Do you feel in a way like, so we both believe in a way that they've lost the message on the gun control thing.
I do think so.
So do you think that instead that's why they move towards the immigration of bringing in all these migrants? 'Cause all these migrants they're bringing are going to be pro-gun.
Yeah, because there's two things that can do. First off, it can overwhelm the country to the point where they're going to be able to use them as voters.
Yeah, so they'd get control anyway.
And it's also, if they can cause enough criminal chaos, then the population starts asking for more laws to protect themselves anyway. That's the plan. Whether or not it works, I don't know. In England, they've already lost their guns, so it's not exactly a 1-to-1 ratio. It's
not a very good poster child for everyone's future to just disturb England, to me. And yet, we don't really have any slides of England this episode, but and yet you have all these liberals that are wanting to move to England, and it's kind of hysterical to me in a way that they're so out of touch. These progressive, high-end, gender-identifying people, that they're going to go somewhere like the Lion's Den of UK and think that they're going to be all right.
Recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
Cause of their servitude, sharing in the profession with those who have not come before you. Similar times of trying medical need, wars and flus past. You will see darkness, you will be pushed, and our society needs you to stand together at this time. Our country loves you. To our doctors and our nurses, I wear these latex
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Maryland is reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized. The gentleman from Texas is now recognized.
Behaving like a child, Taylor.
The gentlelady from Michigan is out of order. The gentlelady from Michigan is out of order. The gentlelady from Michigan is no longer recognized.
It's behaving like a child. I mean, look, make your arguments better. You don't need to screech. And I'm sorry, that's screeching. That's.
Did you look up her name? Because I did look up her name earlier, and now I've kind of forgotten it.
No, and I didn't really care.
Yeah, well,
I know she's from Michigan, but it's more like the point of like. I thought about that, and I thought about looking up her name, but I didn't care. But it's also like this is very indicative of their party as a whole. This is what their party identifies like.
This is Haley Stevens. She is from Michigan, and everybody says that this is her on a good day.
What, does she throw shoes at people?
I think it must be that bad. I think it's just full-on demonic breakdowns.
That's fascinating. Now I want to know more about this person.
I know, I kind of did too. I saw some people talking about it on Twitter and saying, like, we apologize, but you should see her meltdowns on a regular day.
Well, that goes back to me talking about her seeming like a child. I mean, when you're having public meltdowns, that's a very childlike behavior.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she's a millennial, right?
Yeah, I wasn't really clear on what the gloves are about. It's in honor of healthcare professionals in some way.
Yeah, and I think the pink is like,
Are they talking about
like
healthcare?
Code pink kind of thing, but
is it relevant to something? Like what's the context here?
I think this is probably, I'm guessing now, but I think this is probably a complaint about the whole autism thing.
Oh, okay.
This is probably dealing more with RFK than anything Trump is doing.
I see.
I would say there's probably a touch of autism going on through those gloves.
Yeah, nothing convinces me harder than total freakouts. Let me get behind that one.
We're going to get into autism later in the episode, so we'll kind of save it a bit on that because that kind of it brings up interesting points too. But just nutty, and so many people in their party are behaving this way. Not all, but most of them are to where this is how they're kind of identified with, and that's a bad look. When people just kind of snicker at you and go like, hey, you're the people of screeching. You're the political party of screeching and tantrums.
Yeah, tantrums.
So, my goodness. On to like one of our main topics tonight, and that would be the thing that everyone's been talking about for quite a few days. This is from Robbie Starbuck, and this is related to that MS-13 gang member from Maryland that
oh boy
was sent to El Salvador. So we might as well talk about it a little bit. We got some stuff on this.
Yeah, I got all the facts on this case pretty quickly, and after that, didn't see why I needed to spend a lot more time on it. But Van Hollen just kept clowning himself over and over again.
Yeah, he did, and we got a clip on that too. But let's start with this. So this just kind of like set up the story. So, wow, just broke a huge story. You know, the illegal immigrant that Democrats are trying to free from an El Salvador prison, ? In 2022, he was stopped driving without a license, and Tennessee Highway Patrol suspected him of trafficking the 7 people inside. THP then learned he was on a terrorist watch list, so they called Biden's FBI, but Biden's FBI told THP to release him. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, was his name, was then released due to the Biden FBI order, and the THP concerns about trafficking were ignored. Because we love trafficking
they like
now.
it, yeah.
This is on top of a court order. Maryland police finding that they believe he was an MS-13. He had tattoos identifying as such, and his wife reporting that he beat her when filing for a protective order. This is who Democrats want in our country. This is who they're fighting for. Evil. I think a lot of this stuff, just about all of it, is highly provable by documentation.
Yes, it is. So I guess let me tell you my story is we posted a couple comics last week, and just because I was posting anything, it was not related in any way to this story. I got a lot of hate comments furious at me because this was a man who was completely innocent, a Maryland father who absolutely deserved to come home, and it was in fact a American citizen. I had to fight against all kinds of completely made up nonsense. I had one guy who was harassing me pretty badly. It did it over a course of like 3 or 4 days, telling me that I just could not provide the sources for the documentation that he had been in court twice, that he had been in a human trafficking stop in Tennessee, and that he had beaten his wife. And he asked me, do I have to take your word for it? And I said, of course not. All you have to do is read the court documents. They're available. And he kept repeating, like, you're not giving me sources. And I said, well, Pacer is a source, and you can go to Pacer, and you can download, you can search for it and download the relevant court documents, and the Tennessee Star is a newspaper, and you can go to it and read that article. And he repeated again, you don't know what a source is, and that's when I blocked him. And I have never blocked anybody on TikTok before, but I do block liars. And somebody saying that obvious sources are not sources is a liar. But I think the reason that they're doing that is because what they want is a leftist CNN article, including all of that information. Anything that's other than the legacy media that they approve of is going to be dismissed instantly. The problem with that is that legacy media is never going to give you those documents. They absolutely exist, but you're not going to get them from them.
Yeah. That guy in particular, he wanted you to block him so he could go back to his buddies and say he won the argument because you gave up and blocked him.
Yeah, and I agree with that, which is why I normally don't do it. But at some point, it is harassment.
Yeah. Well, you can always call him out for harassment, to the powers that be, because that's not allowed. But that is a modus operandi of what they do. They definitely do that. They take that approach. They'll just argue people not ad nauseous until you just give up, because that to them that's a sign of winning the argument.
Yeah, but it's not winning, because the person does have to be coming from a non-disingenuous point of view. Like if you're just going to lie outright, then
it just dissolves into your mama
there's no argument there. Yeah,
wears combat boots.
Yeah. And I've won some gift wars before where all we're doing is posting gifts back and forth.
I have seen that. That ends up being kind of funny. It just ends up being gifts back and forth, like people picking their nose or something. It's just like...
Yeah. That's kind of entertaining.
Kind of entertaining, kind of sad. But this is one of those strange things that, like, this... Democrats are really furious about this case. And likewise, Republicans are really kind of perplexed and confused that Democrats want to do this case because all the polling shows they lose on this issue.
Yeah, why are you going to die on this hill? Because, he's got all of the MS-13 tattoos. Somebody in local law enforcement...
They're trying to say that's just happenstance. Uh-huh. He just got the tattoos, and... They didn't know they were MS-13.
And he was, carrying drugs and hanging out with drug dealers when he was caught initially. He wasn't looking for work at Home Depot. He was passing out drugs.
Yeah.
And just this outrageous, the stuff with his wife is really amazing. It's like her fake tears and crying like, oh, just bring him home. Oh, yes, I did put out 2 restraining orders on him detailing thoroughly all of the beatings that he was giving me, but no, I just want him home. Like if you ask me about it, I don't have an answer, but I just want him home.
Well, at one point she started claiming, oh, that was a previous relationship.
Yeah, she's just
I filed a restraining order against him too because I was concerned I had been burned once before. He's
Yeah.
really a great guy.
I wonder what lawyer taught her that one. He's not smart enough to come up with that on her own.
And
It's not good, but it's still it's
not good
still above her
because
level.
I don't think the lawyer should have done that if that's how it played out, because I still think that's criminal. You can't just get restraining orders on people.
No,
You can't just fake this kind of stuff. It's a crime.
it sounds like one, but not one that's ever going to actually get prosecuted against
I
her.
know. Well, it would against you, Taylor. You're white.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, well, first of all, you're white, so we're gonna prosecute the crap out of you.
I'm afraid so.
But so as a result, this thing just went so clown show. So Senator Van Hollen from Maryland was like, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to get him released. I'm going to do it Rambo style, I guess, and just go there and start hammering on the door of the prison and demanding they release him. And couldn't initially get an interview with the prisoner. Just wanted to see the prisoner like he had a right to. He's not he has no rights down there to demand anything. Van Hollen doesn't.
No, it is another country.
And eventually they relented. I think it's probably wise, because otherwise he's going to come back and go like, I don't know if he's alive, because they won't let me see him. They probably killed him. And so they did let him see him, and then he was having this on-camera brief interview with him, and talking chit-chat and things like that.
Yeah.
I heard that conspicuously he never actually asked him about any of these things, like, are you an MS-13 gang member or anything like that?
Yeah, I heard that too.
You'd think you'd want to ask that. I mean, just for shits and giggles, ask it.
Oh, he responded like, well, I knew what he'd say. Okay, well, that doesn't tell me much.
Right, just like, I know what you would say, sir.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here's a little bit of his press conference afterwards.
To deceive people about what's going on. And it's also shows the lengths that the Trump administration and the president will go to, because when he was asked about a reporter about this, he just went along for the ride.
So,
okay.
You know what? I would tell you, Taylor, I would give him deference and say that very well could have been a staged thing. I could see that.
Yeah, they might not have had anything to drink.
they could have put those cups there just as a way just to make it look more like they were on vacation than.
Look, I love this El Salvador president. I could totally see him taking 2 steps ahead like that and thinking, like, this would be hilarious.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's the thought? Oh, wow, world leaders can be sneaky. You think?
Yeah, I know they get to their position one way or another.
Yeah, they don't do it from just like being missionaries.
Yeah.
But more to the point, if you feel like Trump is being sneaky and duplicitous here, maybe, but it's only because he learned it from you guys.
Yeah, and because
he learned it from the Democratic Party.
You already look ridiculous. You're aligning yourself with the criminal element, and MS-13 isn't a Roses and Daisies little kind of gang. It's not.
No.
We're not talking West Side Story here, dancing in the alleys.
No, ask Lake and Riley's mom.
This is some of the most demonic, Satan-worshipping, ritualistic, voodoo-type, Caribbean, just evil, absolutely evil kind of organizations you could be talking about. They cut up their victims. And talking about the other MS-13 gang member that killed a mother in Maryland and how devastated she was about that. You are aligning yourself with the killers, the criminals, and putting your back on your own, what's supposed to be your constituency, your actual American citizens. So keep it up, because you look really, really bad. And if there's a couple margaritas on your table making you look even worse, at least it makes it funny.
You know, and the whole duplicity thing, I come back to that because I think of like all the things that Democrats have done. And, you know, we talked about this. Like, I mean, my God, the Biden years, right? I mean, they gave us literally 4 years of telling us that Joe Biden was just a specimen of a man.
Yeah.
You know, and they lied to everybody. And now they're like whining about. I think they might have been. They faked this whole thing with like margaritas. Well, where were you, Van Hollen, during all those years we were asking about Biden's health, and all of you lockstep were just signing off on it.
That's right. They were. I know that reminds me again of the Harari interview because he kept talking about how dictatorships like Trump's create distrust in institutions. No, they did that all by themselves. I wonder where that came from. Lying to us for over and over and over again. Really since 2016.
I don't want anyone teaching my child how to use sex toys of any kind. That is.
Seems reasonable request there to me, Taylor.
This is not really a discussion that a parent should have to have at school.
No.
I don't care that it's high school. It doesn't matter. It's not appropriate. And throwing out there that sexualizing children is part of the UN agenda. That's why it's been creeping into schools younger and younger. And none of this information needs to be something that's part of the curriculum.
So, is this based on control? Like, what? I guess maybe I'm asking.
It's based on the fact that the people that run those kind of organizations like to have sex with kids. If you can convince people that kids can consent to change their gender, if they can consent to and learn about sex at a very young age, then they can just consent to sex in general.
So this doesn't even really seem like about like things like politics and the right to vote and stuff. This just seems like almost like personal sinister hobbies.
Yeah, and a lot of times you find that the next thing you know, some teacher that is championing, pushing all of this kind of material turns out to be the one that's texting kids on the sly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're having a huge wave of cases like that.
Well, it's like a real question as to if this is appropriate, then why aren't there other parts that are appropriate? Like, for instance, if sex toys is something that you can actually teach now in the schools, and that seems to be completely okie dokie, why not just show them porn?
Yeah, I mean, it's illegal in the state of Florida to do that, but I don't think it's a stretch argument to say that a lot of the graphic novels that they are getting passed around are actually pornographic.
I mean, but a thing with a sex toy and porn, I mean, really, is there that much of a difference?
Not really. I mean, the teacher's trying to couch it as it being part of some kind of safe sex safety issue because you have to sanitize them, but you have to be really watching that video. When the father kind of agrees that, okay, if it's not sanitized, the teacher jumps on it because that really wasn't something that had occurred to her before. But it seems like a great way she can make herself sound like she's winning the argument.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I was thinking that all throughout that, and I'm not going to play it again, but all throughout that, she's almost just felt like she was going to try to bait him, to trap him, into just turning him into this
a bigot. I mean,
Sure.
they always feel like they can win if they can just label you as a bigot. Then anything that you have to say is instantly negated because you're a bigot.
Well, and the ironic thing, too, to me, is that he would sit there and say things like, well, like, if you're an adult, fine. I'm not here to argue that point.
Because
I'm
he
just
doesn't
arguing
want to
about
get
kids. But you could almost see on her face that look of panic that she did. He was like shutting down avenues of argument for her.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to be considered a bigot. He probably really doesn't care that much about what adults
I think
do.
that's the case. I don't think he cares that much. I don't think that's but when it comes to minorities, and so it's a much harder role to win if you're going to just narrow it just on about children. I mean,
that is a good point. It is a factor in this conversation that the father is black. It actually does because she is a white woman, even though she considers herself to be queer in some way. He
You
does
gotta have the white
actually,
guilt, right?
yeah, he does actually kind of like go a little bit higher on the, I don't know what they call it anymore, the oppression pole. He has a higher place in the oppression stack.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've got a couple of clips that go deeper into this, and one of the reasons we're really bringing this out is related to just today with the Supreme Court. They heard arguments on something similar to this issue, not specifically on sex toys, though that's necessary, but on whether you can opt out of book material for children, and in this case, we are talking about elementary age children.
Yeah.
But in the case of Maryland, my understanding is they used to have an opt-out, meaning parents could say, "I don't want my kids involved in this."
Right.
And they took that away from them, I think, in 23 or 24, and all of a sudden just said, "All kids have to do this, no exceptions. I don't care how you feel about it."
Yeah, and like they say on the Today Show, what is the innocent, benign explanation for that? And if you look at it, well, zero.
Yeah.
There is zero benign explanation for that.
Yeah.
Is that no parent should have say over the values instilled in any child. I know this is crazy, I know. I totally disagree with, but the left thinks that the values instilled in my children should be that of what their community wants. And by community, they mean whatever radical nuts dancing in front of the Supreme Court today, like this weirdo.
All right, I have a bunch of things to say. So, first off, that mother that no longer talks to me because I'm a bigot assured me that teachers never show kids in elementary school any of this kind of material.
Yeah.
And when I showed her a bunch of links of examples and cases where they actually had, she told me that those were all behind a paywall, which is extraordinary because I couldn't have read any of them if they were behind a paywall.
Yeah. I think that there's probably a case where it's worse depending on parts of the country than some parts of the country.
Well, I only sent her Florida.
Than just that.
I only sent her Florida cases.
But were they as egregious as stuff like this?
They were showing these types of, especially the Gay Pride Parade elementary school picture books.
I mean, looking for the leather underwear is just unbelievable.
Yeah, the leather underwear is kind of a lot, but they were things like using the unicorn chart. That happened, I want to say, in Sarasota area, somewhere up around there, or possibly Pensacola, to try to figure out what your gender was in kindergarten, that kind of thing. There were multiple cases going on in Florida, which is why DeSantis started that whole legislation to stop that kind of thing from happening. And what became what people like to call the Don't Say Gay bill, which is actually do not give kindergartners pride books, which is what is going on here, and especially in states where they just don't even let them tell them that it's happening or let them opt out.
Well, so this is why I also don't believe I think they're going to lose this case, meaning like not the parents but the school, because you can't have a partial opt-out.
Yeah.
You can't have that. So it's being made clear that they can opt out of certain classes, like a sex ed class, but then they cover this one up under the guise of quote-unquote story time, which makes it sound innocuous.
Well, that's what was going on in the Florida cases as well, is they were hiding it under, like, it's projects, it's art time, it's doing things like, when we did the comic series on the pride flags at the camp, that was based on that kind of behavior that was happening during the Biden administration. And Florida's pretty much stamped it out, but a lot of other states haven't.
But how do you stop that? Like, if they can do something and cover it up with the name of story time, unless you've got kids telling you or telling their parents,
well,
there's no way to know that they're
inevitably
doing it.
the kids do come home and talk about
That's
it.
what it would require.
Yeah, that's what happens every time that they get found out. It's something like that.
I mean, because there's just no way to do checks and balances on that. They'll hide it behind snack time.
They sure will. I mean, the mother's argument to me was that, it's unnecessary to have this law because no one would want to give this kind of material. But yes, obviously, some teachers really do. really do want to give that kind of material to them.
Like the butt plug person.
Yeah, like the butt plug
her.
person.
I mean, we just showed a video of someone that really, really wanted to do this. It was important.
Yeah, it was very important to her that she talk about sex toys to high schoolers. And the same goes for a lot of activist teachers in elementary schools, that it's very important to them that they introduce queerness as a concept to kids at a very early age. They're activists. They believe in this.
And remember, this particular case is all focused on the elementary age, not high school. So that's a factor, too. Before we play our next clip on this, just a shout out to Geck. It's good to see you.
Hey, Geck.
Here's Carl Higbee some more.
Be exposed to any of this stuff at any age. Not straight, not gay, not queer, nothing sexual. Parents opting out should be the least of it. It shouldn't even be there. It shouldn't even be a discussion. But here we are today in 2025. Hopefully this fixes it. And we can get back to teaching kids, I don't know, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Parental rights are under attack. I mean, we have this story that just happened this last week where we all heard about the parents that took their kids to Texas and had them all taken away from them because they weren't vaccinating them in, I think, the state of Connecticut.
Yeah.
As if you're not, as a parent, allowed to take, and they're not talking about one parent kidnapping from another, two parents going to another state with their kids. You can't kidnap your own kids. Well, as it turns out, in the state of Connecticut, apparently you can. And the state of Colorado about to enforce a law that would make not supporting your child's gender transition an act of child abuse, so they could, again, take your kids away from you.
Yeah. They're both horrific cases, and the first one is just mind-numbingly bonkers because, what's the basis? This isn't even like you're going across state lines. There's no way that can hold. That one's going to go to the Supreme Court, and they're going to take that, because if you let that stand as a thing, no one can have families anymore.
Does the state decide that for your safety, you must be vaccinated? That is what that case is about in Connecticut, and it's saying that parents don't have the right to make that decision on their kids. The state gets to come in and fill them full of shots.
But if you leave that state, say to move to another state because you disagree,
they
that
extradited
state loses their jurisdiction to have any say about you.
Well, you would think so, but Texas didn't step in.
Yeah, I mean that's also equally infuriating because it's Texas, for crying out loud.
Yeah, supposedly.
But I guarantee if they'd come to Florida, DeSantis would have been up there with armor. He would have been like, "Oh, please come down here and try this."
I know. Those are the reasons why
you.
that I'm here. It's just because there's getting to be fewer and fewer places in the world where you can really trust that your kids are your responsibility, that the state can't come in and destroy your life.
Yeah.
Autism has increased by a factor of 4.8. That's 480%, I believe. The first ADDM survey was 22 years ago, when prevalence was 1 in 150 children. In all the core states, the trend is consistently upward, and most cases now are severe. So about 25% of the kids who are diagnosed with autism are nonverbal, non-toilet trained, and have other stereotypical features: head banging, tactile and light sensitivities, stimming, toe walking, etc.
So Taylor, thoughts?
The numbers are just astounding.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the known rates at this point. There's been a lot of argument that everyone makes, well, we were just underdiagnosing before. It was always like this. There's no way you underdiagnose by this badly. It would have to be that we have the stupidest medical establishment in the history of humanity to be underdiagnosing at that rate.
It's just truly alarming that our federal government did not take this as anything serious. I mean, I don't want to have to walk around and just think that everything is just that much of a conspiracy. But it just gets to the point I see stuff like this, and I feel like I'm just a commodity to this country. Like
hey, you're waking up.
I have as much value
yeah.
as a pack of gum.
Yeah, you're just something that they can make money off of, hopefully just keep you sick until you die.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it feels like, and it feels like they truly tricked you into just being like a permanent sick class of human being.
In the middle and sick is where the money is.
Yeah, but there's enough money that goes around. That's the thing that's kind of disgusting. It's not like it comes down to they just want more and more. It's like a lot of money is not enough. I need it all.
Yeah, it is kind of like I need it all for sure.
And it's bizarre to want it that deeply. I mean, look, let me put it in really brazen terms. If this is really true, and they are purposely poisoning the human population so that they can just keep making more and more and more money, they're going to make Adolf Hitler look like Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, because
you're basically doing mass Holocaust extermination.
That's essentially what the COVID thing was, yeah.
And then it's looking like things like the autism, if they knew it was a problem and covered it up. Because the autism maybe isn't outright killing people, but it's really making it hard, people that have severe autism, to be able to lead a fruitful life.
Yeah, yes. When the autism is really debilitating, I mean, you're talking about people that are barely verbal, can't live on their own. Even for those of us in this family who have the mild autism, it certainly does make going through life pretty awkward.
It does. And I'm curious too, Taylor, what do you think about, so have you been noticing more posts from people that seem to be fighting back against RFK on the autism issue who are autistic themselves?
Yeah, they're being exploited.
I mean, but I don't even get it. Like, can you explain it to me what is going on there? Why are they trying to say, I love my autism, leave it alone?
What they're doing is they're saying I'm brainwashed to believe that my vaccines protect me. It's not about attacking him on the basis of they love their autism. It's about attacking him like, I want to be able to get a COVID shot every 6 months. I want to get a flu shot every year.
Because they think it'll get that much worse. Like, my autism is bad, but if I don't get these shots, then
I might die of flu. I might die of smallpox. I might die of, tetanus. Who knows? They're convinced that these are the only things keeping them alive. It's that bad. I mean, I remember what the pressure was on the flu shots. I had gotten to the point where, I was at work and everyone around me was telling me it was a have to. And so we were doing it for a few years. And it would always make me deathly ill every time I would get a flu shot. But everyone was telling me this is for my own good. And, if you look at that woman who died of flu the other day, she didn't get a flu shot. And if she had, she would have been okay. And yeah. You love your family. It was all of this pressure like that.
Yeah, I remember we used to talk about that and come to the conclusion that it was the incubation in egg that was making you sick.
Yeah, that's what people kept telling me. Well, you must have an egg allergy. I was like, well, I do have a lot of allergies. I don't know. Maybe it is that. It wasn't until I was injured by the Gaviscon shot. The first of 3 shots for I don't know. I'm forgetting what it's, cervical cancer. I don't know if it's blowing out of my head what that shot is called other than that, but as an adult there was never any excuse for a doctor to come in and say
virus or something.
Yeah, to come in and say that this can prevent cancer. There's no vaccine that's going to prevent cancer. That's just fucked. And the doctor lied to me, and she told me about how I was going to have to take like a series of 3. And the first one, you walked into the room and you saw my face and you said, like, you're all like red and puffed, and as soon as you said it, I just pretty much passed out. And I was laid up in bed for like a week, and and not only that, but I remember getting a letter from my insurance company saying that this shot for your age group is experimental and we're not going to cover it. By the way, you owe us $300. And it's a 3-shot routine, so you're going to be $300 every time you get 2 more.
It made it easy for us to quit that.
Yeah, I was like, are you kidding me? I'm done with this. And so I started doing a lot of research and saying, like, there's something really off here. From now, now none of us get shots for anything, and we'll never get it for anything ever again.
Yeah. Here's the second part. This second part is RFK actually kind of talking more about, honestly, the cover-up.
Wisconsin 17 years earlier.
So basically what he's doing there, talking about like a study that had happened in Wisconsin back in the day, and then relating it to like numbers as they exist now, and then verifying it, proving it with another study in North Dakota, so you can see it's not just an outlier, that this is truly a nationwide epidemic. I mean, Taylor, it just feels like, we put all of this effort and go like, COVID, oh my God, COVID. This feels like another COVID that is going to go ignored because they want this one.
For the people that jumped all over this, like, what does he mean? Why isn't he talking about vaccines yet? What does he mean by environmental factors? If it's not genetic, then it's environmental. So you have like 3 different options. You have either genetic or chronic or environmental. And he's saying that he thinks by environmental, one of those things could be food, and one of those things could be medications and injections. So that chronic means that you're like
would environmental be like medicine? That's
like taking a bad medication, or getting sprayed by DDT could be, or getting sprayed by those aluminum in your atmosphere that just showed up out of nowhere.
Although that's a relatively new thing in the autism. The real, probably, again guessing, but the real culprit here is probably the food.
That is definitely one of the culprits. Another one is probably the aluminum in vaccination. Another one is probably the aluminum in our atmosphere. All of those things.
Yeah. I mean, we contemplated, and the more I think about it, I just think it's a good idea of just going out and getting our own water service.
Yeah, I still think that's a good idea, actually.
I mean, I know there's all this talk about trying to get fluoride out of the water and stuff, but it's not done yet. And it's going to take some time to do, and, better late than never to, like, just try to, like, get some of this stuff out of your system.
Yeah, I just wanted to, like, get across the differences and what those kind of ways that you can get disease. And, the chronic is like if you can't give up the sugar and you have diabetes. That's chronic because it's your behavior. And another one is genetic, would be if you inherit cancer predisposition from your parents, that kind of thing.
Yeah, one of the things that's really alarming in the first section, like he was talking about how it's getting worse. That's not surprising.
Yeah.
And then outlining in some of the ways it's getting worse. I mean, we're talking well past this situation of like light autism, I have a hard time focusing, anxiety, and we're getting into things like head banging on the walls and stuff like that. I mean, that's not being able to cope in life.
Yeah, but even just the numbers are what I would consider worse, to have that percentage of the population not be able to, in some form or other, not be able to socialize properly.
Yeah. I mean, and you can see it every day, right? You can just see it in the overall environments people are talking about all the time. There's just not nearly the amount of socializing happening that there used to be. And phones contribute to the problem because they create a substitute for socializing. And you already don't want to do that, so now you can just pick up your phone and text.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing that right now in our chat.
Yeah, we are.
And so more and more people just stay inside. And then you had the whole COVID thing and the lockdowns that went on for over a year that just further trained people to want to just stay home. And then you ended up with people getting to work from home, and then the revolution of people refusing to go back to the job, saying, I like being able to work from home. I should be able to forever work from home. You don't have a right to tell me what to do.
Standard and timeline for the food industry to transition from petroleum-based food dyes to natural alternatives. Number 2, initiating a process to revoke authorization of synthetic food colorings, including those not in production, namely citrus, red number 2, and orange B, within the coming weeks. Number 3, taking steps to eliminate the remaining 6 synthetic dyes on the market from the U.S. food supply, specifically red dye number 40, yellow dye number 5, yellow dye number 6, blue dye number 1, blue dye number 2, and green dye number 3 by the end of next year.
Well, that's worthy of applause.
Yeah, it's a good start. Just where it needs to get started, and get rid of all of them at the end. In light of this speech, and all of the kids that are currently on medications when they shouldn't be, prescribing those ADHD drugs exploded during the 90s, and what also got started during the 90s was school shootings.
Interesting.
And it's been very consistent that the people that are doing these are on some kind of medication, are frequently the same ones.
I think that is definitely true.
Some kind of hormone medication has come up a lot lately.
Well, that's the kind of stuff that's going to make people even more upset with RFK, trying to get that stuff shut down and shut out. It's a shame it's even going to take this long. We're going to be stuck with those dyes for another year and a half, almost 2 years. But
I assume that's just to give the companies the time to be able to change their ways.
Yeah, I guess. But the positive side of that is this is a changeover that is mandated during the Trump administration. So it's not something that the next president can just disavow.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd have to come back and rewrite it all. And they might. This is why, honestly, after Trump, we really should probably try to have J.D. Vance or whoever in there, because Democrats are going to try to put all this stuff back in.
Smaller than the number we saw coming out of 2020, of course, after the events of January 6th. So the bottom line is this. If there's some idea out there that Trump voters are going around, man, I wish I had voted for Kamala Harris instead of Donald Trump, the numbers say that is a fanciful universe. It really, for the most part, does not exist.
And what do you think about that, Democratic Party?
The gentlelady from Michigan is out of order. The gentlelady from Michigan is out of order. The gentlelady from Michigan is no longer recognized.
And you are out of time because you are not in power for the foreseeable future.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's another episode of Mean Tweets. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We had a lot to cover, and the health, the immigration. These are two of the most important components to this country right now, and really two of the biggest reasons why Trump did win re-election, in my opinion, is those two factors. For me, definitely RFK played a role, and I do think when he joined forces with RFK, that was a game-changing moment in his campaign right there.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for upcoming things.
New comic tomorrow?
Yeah, we've got a game stream that we've been really trying to get out the door. Do you want to give them a little bit of a preview there, Taylor?
We are going to be on Thursday night game streaming Dreamlight Valley. They have a new expansion update with Alice in Wonderland, everybody that plays Dreamlight Valley is super excited about it. So we're going to see what it looks like to unlock that realm and walk around in it and evade the card guards. And this weekend, all along in this time, we've been watching Chance play Assassin's Creed. We haven't gotten to record a lot of it because I've had other things going on, but we're going to be doing that stream this weekend. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I told her if I'm going to be watching Dreamlight Valley tomorrow, then tit for tat there.
Assassin's Creed Shadows has gotten pretty interesting, and we're into the storyline at this point. So
yeah, and I can flip back and forth between playing Nato or Yasuke. And,
yeah, we're actually got Yasuke open, so.
Yeah, so
barreling him through.
Barreling is a good description.
Yeah.
So tell them a little bit about the Substack.
Please do subscribe as a free subscriber to our Substack newsletter this month. It's getting towards the end of the month when I will be choosing a winner for a brand new Chance pin. Chance, if you become or are a paid subscriber, then Chance Pin comes with your membership, so please do give me a contact to let me know if you want one and haven't gotten it yet, or become a paid subscriber and get one.
Yeah, we promise all of your information is kept in the vault.
Yeah.
We are very private.
Yeah, we don't want ours getting out. We're not going to let yours get out.
Right. So, and we also on our Substack, we do bonus episodes. We are overdue for another one. Our last one was on the JFK files. And I liked your idea of doing one on the WEF. That was what it was?
Yeah, if I had to sit through Harari's interview, I think you should have to hear what he had to say.
Oh, God. Like, prop my eyes open with toothpicks. Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be a good time. So those things, also the comic, you can find those on YouTube, X, Instagram.
We are everywhere.
We're everywhere. That's
even
the
TikTok.
Easiest way to say it. Just look for Base the Comic. We try to get those out twice a week.
Based comic everywhere.
And working on a fun one with Chinese purchasing American land everywhere. I wish I could say that was a joke and not real, but it is very real. So we're going to turn it into a joke. Other than that, make sure you hit all the appropriate likes. Please tell everyone about our show. We love more and more people involved. And outside of that, we hope you all have a blessed week, and we'll see you again real soon.
See you later.